a boundless ocean of golden grass rippling under a sky streaked with crimson and amber, as if the heavens themselves are bleeding. The African savanna stretches out, wild and untamed, its air thick with the scent of dust and heat, so heavy you can taste it. The sun, a relentless tyrant, claws its way toward the horizon, casting long, jagged shadows across the cracked earth. And there, in the heart of this primal wilderness, stands a colossal figure, a shadow so vast it seems carved from the bones of the land itself. It doesn't move, it doesn't breathe, or does it? The wind rises, weaving through the brittle stalks, singing a mournful, haunting tune that carries a secret on its breath. What is it? What looms there, alone in the fading light? Don't let go of that question, because what's about to unfold will seize your soul and drag you into a story you'll never forget. This isn't just a tale of survival. It's a battle against the impossible, a cry from the edge of life and death. Are you ready to plunge into the unknown? Hold tight, because we're stepping into the wild, deep in this endless expanse, where the horizon blurs into eternity and the earth pulses with ancient rhythms. Stood Maya, an elephant, a titan of the savanna, her massive frame a testament to nature's raw power. Her grey skin, weathered by years under the sun, glistened with sweat and dust, her trunk hanging limp like a fallen banner. Once she'd roamed with her herd, her footsteps a steady drumbeat in their symphony of survival. But now she was alone, utterly, achingly alone. The sun bore down with merciless fury, scorching the ground beneath her trembling feet, turning the air into a furnace that seared her lungs with every shallow breath. Dust swirled around her like a phantom, cloaking her in a shroud of despair, while the wind, that relentless whispering wind, howled a dirge that seemed to mourn her very existence. Normally, an elephant like Maya would slip away from her herd when the time came to give birth, seeking a quiet corner of the wild to bring her calf into the world. It was instinct, a sacred ritual passed down through generations, but this was no ritual. This was a nightmare. Her belly swelled grotesquely, a monstrous bulge that defied nature's design. It wasn't just full, it was bursting, stretching her massive frame so tight that each breath was a struggle, as if something inside was fighting to tear its way out, but couldn't. Her eyes, once sharp and alive with the wisdom of the wild, were clouded with exhaustion, sunken deep into her skull. Days had passed since she'd eaten, her tongue too dry to taste the grass, her strength too faded to seek it. Water, a cruel mirage she could no longer chase. Her legs, thick as tree trunks, quaked beneath her weight, buckling with every faltering step. She was a giant teetering on the brink, a queen dethroned by her own body. Her herd had abandoned her. They'd moved on, their distant trumpets fading into the wind, leaving her stranded in this desolate wasteland. She was alone, truly alone. Her only companions the shadows that stretched long and thin across the savanna. But the real terror wasn't her isolation. It was the silence within her. A pregnant elephant's calf should kick, should twist, should announce its life with restless energy. But inside Maya, nothing. A stillness so profound it seemed to swallow the world around her, a void that whispered of death, and then, crack! The silence shattered. A low, guttural moan rumbled from her chest, rising into a roar that split the valley wide open. The sound was a force of nature, a primal scream that sent birds exploding from the trees in a flurry of panicked wings, their cries swallowed by her own. Predators froze. Lions crouched low in the tall grass, their amber eyes glinting with hunger, their muscles coiled like springs. Hyenas skulked in the distance, their eerie cackles weaving a chorus of doom, their jagged teeth bared in anticipation. They smelled weakness. They smelled blood. Maya was a banquet waiting to collapse, a prize they'd tear apart the moment she fell. But other eyes were watching too. Eyes that didn't gleam with greed, eyes that saw beyond the feast into the mystery of her suffering. Who were they? What did they know? Hold that thought. Because the truth is creeping closer, and it's more staggering than you can imagine. Far off, hidden behind a jagged ridge, A lone figure stood silhouetted against the dying light. His hands gripped a pair of binoculars, his knuckles white, his breath hitching in his throat. "This isn't right," he muttered, his voice tight with dread. He was a naturalist, a man who'd spent half his life decoding the secrets of the wild, tracking migrations, studying births, witnessing deaths. But this was beyond his understanding. Maya's movements were wrong, too slow, too pained, her cries too desperate. He stumbled back to his research camp, his boots kicking up clouds of red dust, his voice breaking as he shouted, "Get the team, now! Something's happening out there, something big!" Hours later, the Savanna trembled under the roar of engines. A convoy of battered jeeps tore across the plains, their headlights slicing through the gathering dusk, their tires churning the earth into a storm of grit and fury. Veterinarians, conservationists, and rangers spilled out, their faces etched with determination and fear. They found her, Maya, sprawled on the ground like a fallen mountain, her massive body a monument to both strength and ruin. Her chest heaved, each breath a slow, shuddering gasp that seemed to pull the air itself into her struggle. She was fading fast, and the weight of her life pressed down on every soul who stood there. "Hurry!" a vet barked, his voice cracking with raw urgency. "She doesn't have long." The team swarmed around her, their hands trembling not just from the stakes, but from the sheer awe of her presence. This wasn't just an elephant. This was a life, a soul, clinging to the edge of existence. And they were her last hope. Ate. Young vet dropped to his knees beside her, pressing a stethoscope to her side, his ear straining for a sign. "Heartbeat's there, but it's faint. Too faint," he said, his words heavy with worry. Another raced to unpack an ultrasound machine, its mechanical hum cutting through the thick silence like a lifeline. A third hesitated, then reached out, his hand hovering over her swollen belly before pressing down gently. And then, whoosh, it moved. Not a kick, not a nudge, but something bigger, stranger, alive. The team froze, eyes widened, breaths stopped. Cold. The ultrasound flickered to life, its screen casting a ghostly glow across their faces, and what it revealed ripped a collective gasp from their throats, a sound swallowed by the vastness of the night. This can't be real," a vet stammered, his voice barely a whisper, his eyes locked on the impossible. What did they see? Picture it. Not one tiny life nestled inside Maya, but two. Twins, impossibly rare in elephants, a phenomenon so scarce it bordered on myth. A miracle, yes, but a miracle wrapped in a death sentence, because those twins weren't moving freely. They were trapped, tangled in a deadly knot within her womb, their fragile bodies locked in a struggle they couldn't win. Maya couldn't give birth. She was dying, slowly, agonizingly, and her unborn calves were dying with her, their lives slipping away with every faltering beat of her heart. "We can't wait," the head vet said, his voice steel-wrapped in desperation, his eyes blazing with resolve. "If we don't act, we lose them all. But how do you save a creature this vast, this fragile, in the middle of nowhere? Sedation was a gamble, a cruel roll of the dice. Knock her out, and her own weight could crush her lungs, her heart, her spirit. Surgery. Out here, with the sun gone and the night pressing in, with predators circling and the clock ticking down to zero? Impossible. The hyenas' shrieks grew louder, closer, their shadows slinking through the dusk like specters of death. Their laughter echoed across the plains, a taunt, a promise. Time was bleeding away, pooling red in the dirt beneath Maya's trembling form. "We do it by hand," a vet declared, her words slicing through the panic like a blade. The team stared at her, horrified yet electrified. It was madness, pure, reckless madness. One wrong move and Maya's thrashing could crush them, or she could crush herself in her panic. But there was no choice, no time. Picture this moment. A circle of humans dwarfed by a dying giant, their faces streaked with sweat and dust, their hearts pounding in their chests as they steeled themselves for the impossible. The lead vet took a shaky breath, rolled up her sleeves and reached into the birth canal, her hands disappearing into the unknown. The air thickened with tension, every heartbeat a thunderclap, every second a lifetime. And then Maya screamed. A sound so primal, so raw, it tore through the night like a jagged bolt of lightning. Her body convulsed, her ears flapping wildly, her trunk lashing the air, her eyes flashing with terror and pain. The team staggered back, their courage faltering, but the vet held firm, her arms trembling with the weight of her task. "It's moving!" she shouted, her voice rising above the chaos. "The first one's coming!" With a wrenching pull, the first calf slid free, tiny, slick and still. Too still. The world seemed to stop, the wind falling silent, the predators holding their breath. "No, no, no," a vet cried, dropping to his knees beside it, his hands shaking as he wiped its face, cleared its airways, pressed gently on its chest. Nothing. The team held their breath, the silence suffocating, the weight of failure. Pressing down like a stone. Was it over? Had they fought this hard, this far, only to lose? The vet's hands moved faster, his voice breaking as he whispered, "Come on, little one, come on!" Then a twitch, a faint snort. And suddenly, a weak, trembling cry pierced the air, fragile yet fierce. The calf was alive. Cheers erupted, raw and ragged, tears streaking dusty faces as the team clung to each other, their relief a wildfire in the dark. But the joy was fleeting, a spark snuffed out by the shadow of what still lay ahead. One life saved, but another still hung in the balance, and Maya's strength was nearly gone. The second calf was stuck, twisted backward in a cruel mockery of birth, its tiny body lodged in a trap of flesh and bone. Maya's breaths were shallow now, ragged gasps that barely lifted her chest, her eyes half closed in a haze of pain and surrender. "Come on, girl," a vet whispered, stroking her. "Trunk," his voice thick with emotion. "One more push, you're stronger than this, you have to be." The team rallied, hands slick with sweat and blood, guiding, pulling, praying, their voices a chorus of desperation and hope. Maya groaned, a sound that seemed to rise from the depths of her soul, a cry that carried the weight of every battle she'd ever fought. Her body shuddered, a last, monumental effort that shook the earth beneath her. The team braced themselves, their hands straining, their hearts pounding, and then out it came, the second calf, limp and silent, a fragile shadow against the dirt. The vet lunged forward, hands shaking as he checked for life, his fingers fumbling over its tiny chest. "It's faint, so faint." He pressed on its chest once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. The night closed in, the hyena's cries rising. Like a tide, the team's hope slipping through their fingers like sand. "Please," someone whispered, a plea to the wild, to the stars, to anything that might listen. The savanna held its breath, the wind stilled, the world poised on a razor's edge. And then a quiver, a tiny snort, a cry, soft at first, then loud and defiant, a trumpet of life that shattered the silence. The second calf lived. The team collapsed, sobbing, laughing, clinging to each other in a tangle of exhaustion and triumph, their voices rising into the night like a hymn. Maya lifted her head, her weary eyes locking onto her twins, those 2 fragile miracles trembling at her side. With a shuddering breath, she let out a triumphant trumpet, a sound that rolled across the plains like thunder, scattering the predators into the shadows, silencing the hyena's cruel laughter. It was a cry of victory, of defiance, of a mother who'd stared death in the face and refused to blink. The team watched, their faces wet with tears, their hearts swollen with awe. Maya had fought, not just for herself, but for the 2 lives she'd carried through the darkness. And she'd won. So, listener, what did you feel as Maya roared her triumph? Did your heart race when the first calf took its trembling breath? Did you ache when the second hung in silence, teetering on the edge of oblivion? This isn't just a story, it's a pulse, a cry, a testament to life's raw, unyielding power. Tell me, what gripped you most? What moment made your breath catch? Your fists clench? What would you have done in that wild, desperate hour with the night closing in and the stakes higher than the sky? Speak to me, because this tale isn't over until you make it yours. Let your voice join the wind, and let's keep this fire burning. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories, and don't forget to turn on your ringtone. Thanks.